Hi Tri-State, welcome to Facebook Live Fridays. If you're driving, we ask that you please wait till you're stopped to watch this video. It will be available for the next few days. And so we're just going to get started. Today we have operations with us. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and we'll get started. So I'm going to flip it on over. And here we go.
All right, well, hi, I'm Josh.
No, we can introduce ourselves.
All right.
My name is Mike Shear. I'm the lead planner of the Western region, and I've been with Tri-State for just over 4 years now.
I am Ray Morales. I am the planner of the Western region. I've been here for 3 years now.
And Gina Stevens, aka Gina Jones. I am the flatbed unit manager and planner. Been here going on 11 years this year.
Oh.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and give the background information on me. I've been here for about 4 years now. I have moved to an extended coverage leader position. And a part of that is just trying to improve the communication on the weekends that you guys get. So recently we started doing something called the WMS board. I could dive into it and explain it, but that would take a while. But the basics of it is we're trying to monitor certain key factors in order to improve revenue and improve the downtime that you guys have in between loads. Part of that we've been doing is trailer testing. The importance of it is when we're doing the pre-test for the DCS on basically whether or not the door sensors work and whether or not it connects to your tractor. It's helping us find trailers that need new door sensors, need new Qualcomm units, need new PM or updated PM, or just anything to be able to get you guys better quality trailers out there, so that way you're not coming into a yard with a broken trailer. Another thing that we've had some issues on is sometimes we do need to replan freight over the weekend. I do try to give you guys a call whenever I'm changing it up. I'll admit it, sometimes I forget and I get carried away in the replanning process because on the weekends it can be tight. We do have a shorter crew, but we do try to address every single driver's issue, and we try to get you a quick response. And a couple other things they wanted me to touch on was under a DITS load, whenever you're sending an unusual delay, if you're under an awning, sometimes it doesn't send the signal out, and so DITS won't get that update from you, and then they'll call us and say, hey, we haven't received an update from this truck in a while. Are they okay, or is anything going on?
Lost signal.
And then we'll get a lost signal if you're parked under an awning too long. And so if we could make an effort to just try to send those before you start going under the fuel awning or before you take your break, that's awesome and really helpful. And then if your truck's been turned off for too long, we're actually not supposed to turn off our trucks under DITS loads. And so that's another reason they'll call us and say, hey, is this truck okay? Can we get them to send a message? And if we all come together to make these efforts, it'll be able to reduce the call volume for us as well as for you guys, because then we don't need to bug you. And right now I'll take the opportunity to ask if anyone has any questions, Riley?
No questions just yet.
All right, then I'll pass it on to Mike Shear.
All right, hello Tri-State. I wanted to touch on a communications piece with us. Through a lot of feedback that we've gotten from drivers, and over the past few months, the one thing that we hear a lot about that's very frustrating is replanning loads. And it's inevitable that it's going to happen. There's things that are out of our control, such as breakdown, weather, loads, cancels, etc. But there are some things that we can influence and possibly control to, slow that down a little bit. One of those issues is confirming pre-plans in a timely manner. There isn't a specified time limit, to accept a pre-plan. Sometimes you're driving, you have to get pulled over in order to read it, accept it. But there's a lot of times when a plan's on a truck in the morning and it's gone all day and still hasn't been accepted, and we find out in the afternoon that you can't run it for whatever reason. And that calls us to rip plans apart, replan them, and it's not just your truck that we got to take plans off of, it's multiple trucks in order to make it work. So if you could read those plans, if you got questions, reach out to your DM, ask them questions about it. They can give you the information you need, and you can make a better informed decision on whether or not you can run that plan. Another thing that goes hand in hand with that is confirming that you have the hours to run the pre-plans. There's many a times when a pre-plan gets accepted, trucks are on their way to go and get the loads, and it could be late in the afternoon, overnight, or literally an hour before the load picks up when we find out that a truck doesn't have the hours to run the load. Again, this causes us to rip apart a bunch of plans and scramble to try and get it covered. So going over your hours and knowing them ahead of time will help greatly in that process. The last two ones that I have here both deal with home time, and they kind of go hand in hand. But when going into home time, your driver manager should already be reaching out to you to identify when you'll be ready to come back out. I suggest that you reach out to them as well, just so you're both on the same page, communicating those times, so we have solid times in the computer to come back out. Lots of times we're booking freight based on the information that we have in the computer. Also, while you're on home time, if for whatever reason something happens and you have to push your time out, it's better to let us know earlier than when we call you to say we have a pre-plan for you. Because by that time, we've already booked a freight or booked a load just for your truck. And to find out you can't do it the day beforehand causes us to have to rip a lot of things apart to go back and put it all back together. So if you know on a Tuesday that you're not ready to come out on Friday, it's probably best to call us on that Tuesday to update your time. And if your DM isn't in, you can call and talk to any driver manager. They'll be able to assist you.
And just to add a little bit on that, if you do go on home time, put your truck in the shop. That's another, make sure your truck is ready to go also, or notify your DM that again your truck's in the shop and you're not able to come out.
Good point on that, Ray. So just a little bit of extra communication from us as well as from you coming to us could help a lot with having to replan. Any questions, Riley?
We have one from Bill Weiland. He says, when do you think flatbed freight will pick back up on the East Coast?
We don't have an answer for that question. I mean, it's been a dog-eat-dog world out there. I mean, there is freight, but it doesn't seem to be hot in any particular area. It's sporadic.
No more for now.
All right, thank you.
All right, so again, I'm the West Coast planner in Ray. Mostly going to talk about our drop yards, trailers. So we have quite a few locations on the West. I know we have 2 in Ontario. We have 1 in Sacramento. We have 2 in Nevada. We have our Utah yard, our Arizona yard. We have 1 in Colorado and 1 up north in Washington. Let's see. The Nevada, there's TSMT Reno and Wadsworth yard. Those 2 locations don't have local drivers. So if any drivers go in there, we would prefer to do drivers to do yard checks. I would ask please and thank you when you are or when you're in those locations if you can do yard checks there. Also the Sacramento yard also does not have a local driver. So if you can do a yard check whenever you're at that location also. All the other locations do have local drivers assigned to those yards, so they get us an empty. What this is going to do, what we're trying to do is whenever you guys are going into dropping a load in a yard, we're trying to assign trailers to you guys. Just so that way it makes it easier for you guys, 1, that the trailer, that there is an empty there for you guys to take out, and 2, that the trailer is good and up to par for you guys just to hook, test it, and keep rolling. To add on to that, whenever you guys are in a yard, no matter, I mean, this can be a yard throughout all the states. If you guys can let us know if they're bad trailers, broken trailers, something's wrong with it, bad tires, just so we can get maintenance out there to get them fixed and roadworthy for you guys, so you guys are not, again, boggled down in the yard just trying to look for an empty trailer. Again, as a planner, I know Josh mentioned it, but MAC 1s, the macro one, if you guys can do that in a timely fashion, so that way we know if we have to replan a truck or if we have to look for somebody else to cover a load. I think that's pretty much it. Any questions?
We've got a question from Chris Godwin. He says, is there a chance we drivers can get an updated drop yard list so we can know all yards?
Yeah.
We could probably get that put
Yeah.
together.
Yeah,
Yep.
I would, that's a good idea. We can definitely get that put together, Chris.
And then I'm not really sure that this is based off what you just said, but Rose Bates wants to know, as an owner operator, do they get punished for turning down loads?
Get punished for no, not. I would say punished, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I know what you're saying.
Okay. So that's kind of all I have.
Okay.
Just to touch on the yard checks a little bit, really any drivers that go into even a facility where we have a pool of trailers, whether it be a yard, Seal Beach, I know we keep a handful of trailers there, anywhere across the US where there's a pool of trailers of ours, when the driver has the opportunity to send a yard check in, that helps us out greatly. A lot of these trailers don't have tracking goes dead, you know, different scenarios and situations, but anytime they can get us a yard check when they're in a facility, that helps us out. So just to verify that the information that we have in the system is correct.
I'd actually like to go back to Rose right quick. Owner operators aren't getting punished per se. I mean, it's up to them whether they run a load or not. One of the issues we're running into right now is DOD is well short of what it has been in the past. So we have a lot more commercial freight out there to run, and I'm not saying that we're punishing them, but I'm asking them to be a little more open to running some of that freight. And what we'll try and do is plan a couple of loads together so the revenue is still greater, because we're picking up a lot more clean harbors and stuff like that. I know that's not favorable to a lot of the owner operators, but it's still freight that we need run.
Or maybe instead of just saying no, you don't want to run it, see what can be added to the back half of that.
Correct.
So when you deliver, you guys keep rolling.
As far as that goes, we don't have any more questions, but if there's anything else you guys want to touch on, or something that somebody else said. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, sorry. It's Gina's turn. Sorry.
Behind the camera, she can't see me. Again, I'm Gina Stevens. Pretty much going to touch on service failures. Service failures have been a very hot topic around here for a while. And I don't really have any notes per se, but just kind of want to cover the whole gist of it. Service failures are our means of tracking how well we're doing. So a lot of times drivers will say, I wasn't late, it wasn't my fault, you know, something got changed. You could be on a load, going to a delivery, have a blowout on your trailer, whatever the case may be, and we arrive late. A lot of the drivers say, well, I wasn't late, I had a flat tire. End result is, you were still late. We were late as a service provider to a customer. Totally something you couldn't prevent. It gets coded as a mechanical failure, but I wanted to put that out as an example of what we're looking at as far as us grading ourselves as a service provider. A lot of the drivers think they're being blamed for being late at locations. It's not about pointing fingers or laying blame. It's about grading ourselves as a company. We want to know how we're doing. We want to know what is a common service failure, so we can try to make good and or make changes to try to prevent that and improve our service. You know, one driver's failure is not necessarily bad, but when we have failures over and over, it could be 20 different drivers, and the other drivers aren't, you know, aware of that. It could be traffic, it could be mechanical, it could be weather, whatever the case is. As a company, it all compiles. You know, you see you're one late, and it's not a big deal. But when it's you're one late and 19 other lates into a customer, 20 lates, that reflects badly. So we want to do what we can to try to prevent that and try to improve our service. One of the things that we've noticed has come up quite a bit is sending in macros. Drivers will go to a shipper per se, supposed to be there at 8 o'clock, say. You know, don't really plan enough time to get there, or plan just enough time to get there, and now you've blown a tire, or you've got shut down on the freeway because of an accident, or whatever the case may be, and now you're not getting there till 8:30, 9 o'clock. We're late. You know, the drivers may say, well, it was traffic, there's nothing I can do about that. Completely correct. But when you plan your route ahead, you can leave early, try to shoot to be an hour, half hour earlier than the actual arrival time and not squeeze that time too tight, because there's always going to be the unforeseen. Like I said, mechanical, traffic, whatever the case is. You need to make sure that you're building a little bit of cushion in there to make sure that you allow yourself enough time to, you know, be able to hit those marks. Unless there's a specific place or a specific note in the load that tells you not to arrive early, there's really no just reason not to. Maybe that you don't have enough travel time, that's a different instance, but a lot of times, you know, pickups are next day, or, you know, over the weekend they're on a Monday morning and we're late when we had all weekend to get there. Those are the preventable ones we want to try to avoid. Sending in macros, to kind of touch on that again, if you get to a shipper and the shipper's not there, say we tell you to be there at 8, they don't actually open until 9 o'clock. If you're at the shipper and our arrival time is telling you that you're supposed to be there at 8 o'clock, when you get there, send your arrival. You're there. Maybe they're not there, but you're still there on time as you were instructed to be. So that helps us track, you know, you send your arrival in, call your DM, send your message in that says, hey, I'm here, place doesn't open up till 9 o'clock. That's great. We show you there, it doesn't flag as a service failure on you, and we let the CSR know what happened and why we're not going to get loaded right away. So, and that also prompts them to get in communication with the shippers and verify their hours of operation and what have you. So, things of that nature. If you get to a shipper or a receiver and you send your macro and it errors out, a lot of things can cause those to not post when you send them. Putting a wrong trailer number, putting a wrong load number, missing information. Please be aware of those error messages. They kick back to let you guys know that something's not right. There's going to be error messages come back, for example, on trailers not showing in the right locations. That's not anything that you can correct. Wrong load numbers you can correct. Bad trailer numbers you can correct. Things like that, when you watch for the error messages to pop up and try to get them fixed right away, that's all going to be something that's, let's work on your DM so they can focus on helping you with more important issues. And it's going to show that you've arrived where you're supposed to be. When the error message kicks back and you don't try to correct that, if you correct it 20 minutes later, now the system's showing that you're late. It's a invalid service failure, but it's because it wasn't corrected initially. So make sure you're sending the stuff early. Watch for the error messages. Those are going to be key things that are going to really cut down on that stuff a lot. One more, touching on the service failures, we're trying to squeeze down our codes internally as far as why trucks are late. So you may get more questioning from your DMs on why you're late, what caused it, was there any way to prevent it. It's not necessarily late, again, blame or anything. It's more to focus on where we can make improvements. So our travel times, you know, I've had a couple drivers who told me, hey, when I send them a load from this pickup to this delivery, there's no way I'm going to make that right off the bat. Make sure you bring that up to your driver manager right away. That's stuff that we can correct on the front end and eliminate trying to put a reason to a service failure that we could probably prevent to begin with. So that's really the basics that I wanted to cover. I know there's probably a lot of questions around that, whether they're on Facebook or not, but you will hear a lot more about service failures in the upcoming week. The fleet managers, Chris Church and Chris Hauer, as well as myself. One more person in Joplin. Don't remember who it was, I'm sorry. I'll be going around kind of assisting the driver managers with trying to narrow down and correct the service failures, help coach you guys on how to prevent the service failures if that's what needs to happen as well. So, and that's all I got for me.
Well, something I thought of to branch off what Gina said was one of the impacts that being late and having a service failure is we can't charge detention. For example, I know I'm not naming customers, but some customers will keep you there all day. And so a part of our line of defense is we can come back and charge them detention, which means that your time was paid for. And so with sending our macros on time, we can properly track that, and touching base with us when it's been over the hour. Once you've been there an hour, you should probably be reaching out to your driver manager, sending a free form message so it's documented, and just saying, hey guys, I've been here an hour, I don't know what is delaying them, but that way we can send it over to the CSR, and the CSR can contact the customer, and we can be both trying to get you out of there sooner, as well as setting our line of defense, so that way we can charge them for the time that you guys spent there. That's the only thing I thought of branching off of the importance of sending those macros in a timely manner, and sending it right when you get there, and sending it right when you guys leave.
There actually was one more note I wanted to cover on the service failures. I was asked to cover communication. Make sure that you are communicating with your DM if you are going to be late. Before you're late, please. After the fact, usually we already know. If we have to get a call from the customer asking where somebody is, it's a little bit of egg on our face as opposed to us calling saying, hey, my driver blew a tire, they're running a little bit behind, customer knows on the front end. You'd be surprised at how much more flexibility we get when we're the ones that tell them you're running late and they're not telling us your truck's not here yet. So please be diligent about communicating with your driver manager. Even if you think you're running close, better to have that kind of heads up on the front end again than after the fact. So,
And that's not just on the load that you're on, it's also on the pre-plan that you're gonna pick up next. Because that first load that you're late to or may be late to may affect everything else down the line.
Creates a domino effect, yes.
So if you can just reach out, like Gina said, and let your DM know, that'll help us out a lot. Questions?
This is more of a comment. This is from Ray Stewart. He wants to know if we can be more specific on pickup times. He says if it is an appointment, put one time, but if it's an option and not a specific time, put a window of time.
Absolutely, and there's more to come on that in the near future.
We have another question. It says, how do we fix the trailer not available at this location?
That one, operations will go ahead and fix for you. The trailer issue that you're going to be keeping an eye out for is mostly the one saying, what is it? Inbound trailer doesn't match.
yeah, so with the trailer not being available at a location, what we run into, and this kind of ties back to location codes, you'll notice sometimes you'll go to different places and the location code will be different. We may have multiple codes for one location for different reasons, whether it's, perfect example would be Letterkenny in Chambersburg. We have a code for the commercial freight because it's a completely different set of instructions on how to handle the load than it is taking munitions into there. So the trailer may show at Letterkenny, but it may show at one code as opposed to the other. It's a system problem we haven't been able to correct. And it's easy enough for operations to flip that trailer over to the other code. That's stuff that we're gonna have to work on our end to help you out whenever you get those messages. And we wanna keep those codes separate, again, because you don't want one code with 5 pages of instructions. It's easier for us to have 2 separate codes with how to handle the type of load that you have going into a location.
An example in the west would be like Clean Harbors and Aragonite and Clive. You may be delivering into Clive, but you have to get your empty at Aragonite, so that your empty move will be Clive, but the trailer shows at Aragonite, so it always throw in that error message. And again, the DM usually fixes that and corrects it on our end.
We have a question from Donna Brown. She says, how do we get customer service put right info in like waits, time, and directions?
I can tell you that is a work in progress. Unfortunately, as much as we try to put accurate information in there, staff changes, hours change, policies change. So what may have been correct in Tucson, Arizona 6 months ago, I can tell you, I'm using this as an example because I know they were doing construction down there. The instructions changed. You go into a different gate now because of the instruction. And that's not gonna be the same 6 months from now when they're done. We try to get as much updated information as we can. I can tell you we've called places and we're told somebody's a point of contact and they're retired a month ago. You can call somewhere and say, I can't get a hold of this person. Well, they happen to be on vacation. That's not always stuff that they tell us up front. You know, I tell you, I listen to the CSRs on a regular basis here on the phone. They do try to dig for as much accurate information as they can whenever they do take the loads. But you're gonna run into issues where, you know, again, people have retired, they're on vacation, information has changed due to personnel changes, policy changes, instruction changes. It's gonna happen. It's a fluid situation. Again, CSRs have been really good and diligent about trying to erase old codes and update information as we get it. I can tell you on your macro set, on your empty call, there's a macro on there that asks if the directions were correct. I can tell you, people call and say these aren't correct, but they're not filling that out on their empty call. Please utilize that, because it sends a message to our group in here, the CSR group specifically, so they can help address those issues and get that stuff corrected.
So far, we don't have any more questions.
I do have one personal thing on the flatbed stuff I wanted to touch on, just because I was asked to bring it up. Flatbeds, we did start getting new flatbeds in. We've just got maybe a dozen of them out so far. So you will start seeing them in the system. Nice trailers, not a whole lot different than what we had before, so and they do all start with 848s. I was asked if we were going to start getting rid of the old trailers. We have been pulling them out of the system as they're unserviceable. Obviously, we just don't want to yank 300 trailers out of the system and just get rid of them because they're old. If they're repairable and they're usable, we're going to do what we can to keep them in service until we can get new ones filtered in. But it's a process, so bear with us. We're doing what we can. You know, they're spread out through the United States, so it's tough to round them up when we find out that we need to get rid of them. We have quite a few on the sale list. We've probably gotten rid of maybe 40 of them in the last 6 months. So it's a work in progress. We're trying, so just so everybody's aware.
All right. If there's anything else you guys like to touch on, feel free. We don't have any more questions coming in yet. If there's anything else, all good. All right.
Happy Friday.
Well,
Friday.
thank you.
You.